Well, hello, folks. This is Dawn Cherry's Grapevine podcast. I hope you're enjoying all our stories and are up to date. We talk about everything, right, Dad?
Well, the first one I want to talk about, and I know the plagues out there. I know the playoffs are starting with the Stanley Cup. But it's one thing I really noticed in the paper, and I'm the only guy that would notice it, is Matthews said, Austin Matthews from, now remember now, he's from Arizona. Where is he from in Arizona? Phoenix?
Phoenix, I think, yeah.
Somewhere in Arizona. Anyhow, he's so happy. He says he's so happy that they're going to relax. The NHL is going to relax their dress code. Their dress code is a shirt and tie, and he wants to express himself. And the guy that had committed a Finn said he is so happy too. Kapanen, so he's playing too. So there goes one of our Canadian heritages down the drain again. I'm going to do a long story on that. And I'm the only guy that noticed it. They'll come in walking like baseball players and football players and basketball players.
Yeah, well, Morgan Riley said he's going to wear a shirt.
Oh, Morgan Riley, we know, a good Canadian boy from Vancouver. Where's he from? Vancouver.
Yeah, BC.
Yeah, BC. He's a good boy.
And Blake Wheeler, he came out and said, we're professionals. We have professional standards.
And I could go on and on and on. I'll tell you one story. It's really funny. That we have all the kids, and only sport in the world where the kids come in to the games, to the practices, and they're 12 years old. They have a shirt and tie on. We're the only sport in the world. And I think one of the best is I'm posing with all the guys, and they got all shirts.
Yeah, we were at a tournament.
Were you there?
Yeah, we were at a tournament, and it was the younger kids. They were like about 11 or 12 came up. And we're getting their picture taken.
And they're all the whole team, and they're all dressed sharp as a tack. So then I had all had T-shirts on. So I didn't say anything. And I said, I said to one of the Canadian kids that had a shirt and tie on, I said, I don't understand. I said, all those kids have just T-shirts on. He says, they're from Detroit. This is the one thing we got going that we cannot lose, even though Matthews from Arizona and Kapanen from Finland wants to dumb us down. I call it dumb us down. We'll be seeing anyhow. Blake Wheeler, good for you, Blake Wheeler.
Well, it's funny now. Like, you go out, it's just like when you go to the minor league games. I mean, you'll have kids in suits, bow ties. And like dressed to the nines going into the game at
I feel like
8 or 9 o'clock at night. And I remember one time, Dad, you were coming in, and you were talking to a kid, was just kind of got into the rink, and he was a goalie, and he had a big bag, and he kind of went off into the dressing room, and he had a really sharp suit on. It was full suit, tie, shoes, bow tie, the whole thing, all dressed up. And you said to the dad, you go, wow, you go, your son looks really good, really sharp. You go, yeah. And Dad, he goes, what do you mean, yeah? He goes, I don't like it. The guy, you go, what do you mean you don't like your son getting dressed up? He goes, he wears his suit and tie, and he says, no, I got to carry his bag because he doesn't want to wrinkle his suit.
There actually is, and I can say it now, but there actually is, I forget it, I'm not going to name the coach, but there was actually a coach say to the players, and this kid was all dressed up, half the kids were dressed up like NHL guys. And he said, if you come in shirts and ties again, you'll be suspended.
Yeah, there are guys that, there are people that just don't like
I mean, wait a minute. If you're playing hockey, you could go to one of these stores and you can buy a white shirt and tie for $10.
It's not the cost. If you're a mom, you know how much work it is. If you're getting a white shirt, it's going to get dirty. It is a bit of an inconvenience.
That's the glory of the thing.
That's
is
right.
That you're not dressed like a slob. You ever see the basketball players come in?
Yeah.
I mean, you want us to start like them? And the funny thing about Matthews is Matthews was one of the sharpest dressers. Yeah. When he came in with Marner,
when you kind of put out a tweet on that, and he had a 3-piece suit and a Peaky Blinders hat on, the whole deal. So
we cannot, and I'm going to go into it someday. We cannot become Americans, and I shouldn't say that because both my kids are Americans.
Yeah, we're both American, but there is an Americanization of the game.
Coming. Really, and it's coming. And look at the guys. The thing we got: Matthew Schneider, Bill Daly, Gary Bettman, and everybody else. It's American.
Well, but you know what it is, though, Dad. We're kind of getting off topic on here, but it's the media, though. It's not those guys. It's the stupid media, and it's our Canadian media that are taking the American lingo for hockey, and they're starting to use it.
Well, I got to tell you about the one dangle. I know I did this on television, but I'm going to do it anyhow. How the world, everybody knows back when I played and when John Muckler and they were winning the Stanley Cups and everything like that, and dangle meant skate fast. Yeah, it was, come to think of it, now I think it was on the Bill Daly. That used to be a guy that, imagine Bill Daly, on the Bill Daly.
There's nothing to do with the Bill Daly now.
There wasn't, no. It was spelled different, but on the Bill Daly. Anyhow, what happened was, this is what happened with dangle. And what made me bring it up is you brought up the press, because we won't go into the press, but anyhow, it had a commercial. It had two Europeans running through a bank, and they had sticks. I guess you'd call it dangle. They were hitting the pucks up with their sticks, and they had a bank. He was a guard sitting down. He says, "Look at those two players dangling the puck." So naturally, it was made in the United States, and they didn't know what dangle meant, and so we picked it up. So I never forget. I know I did this here on Hockey Night in Canada, but I'm going to do it again anyhow. John Muckler come in, and John Muckler, I think he's won 5 Stanley Cups and coached a long time. And I said to him, the guy sitting next to me, you know who, was sitting next to me, and he was going on dangle. He didn't understand dangle either. I said, "What does dangle mean, John?" And he said, "Skate fast." But that is one we've lost. They haven't got into wheel yet. Wheel, wheel, wheel. And what wheel, wheel, wheel is a goaltender saying to a defenseman that's picking up the puck behind the net, "There's nobody checking you. You can wheel out." But they haven't quite. What does wheel mean? That's a wheel of a car. They haven't quite. So now I hear them saying, the American announcers saying, he's wheeled out of his end. He doesn't understand what wheel means. Anyhow, they haven't quite figured that one out yet.
The one that you always bring up, too, is the difference between a jersey and a sweater. Oh. And if you watch, you folks out there, if you ever watch Letterkenny, who stars our good friend Jared Kiso, he goes on a whole thing on his hockey team when he's on the show going, "Listen, it's not a jersey. Like Don Cherry says, it's a hockey sweater." And yes. He goes on. And that show, he brings your name up. Jared brings up your name.
Well, he did pretty good. His dog, he did a commercial on that.
Oh, he does. He loves his Gus on that show. For you folks that love Letterkenny out there. And Jared Kiso, of course, he played you on the 2 movies. And he loves dogs, as you can see.
A little better looking than me, but...
Yeah, well, and Gus, who was on the set... when we were filming the movies, I should say, out west, I got to walk him. I was his dog walker. Anyway, he brings Gus on the show, Letterkenny, and he does a couple skits on this show that he's trying to discipline Gus. It's one of my favorite scenes, and anyway, he brings your name up a lot about tradition and how you do things right.
Well, tell the people the difference between sweater and jersey and how it became from sweater, because
it's pretty.
Like, because there was an old story about...
It was a book out, the book of the sweater.
About the sweater. It was called The Sweater. It was about a kid from Montreal that wanted a Canadian sweater, and his mom bought him a Toronto Maple Leaf sweater.
And he got ostracized and pulled it out of the church and the whole deal. Well, what happened was, we used to call them sweaters because you sweated them. That's the only reason I think. Anyhow, we call them sweaters. We always call them sweaters. The Americans started to call them jerseys because in New Jersey, there was always, it was at one time, it was great for textiles and stuff like that. And that's where the sweaters came from. A lot of the sweaters came from New Jersey, so they call them jerseys. That's Al Strachan says a different reason, but I say that's what I said. I could go on and on this, but you're getting, that's enough. Sweater, but remember the book? It was a great book called A Sweater.
Yep.
Yeah.
They even did a little animation about how this.
It was good.
Poor kid got a Toronto Maple Leaf sweater in Montreal. But there, you know what though, Dad? Like, You can blame it on the Americans, but I've heard, guys on Hockey Night in Canada who are doing play-by-play say the puck's in the paint when it's in the crease. I mean, that's a basketball term.
The wall.
I've heard guys talk about, the wall. I've heard guys talk about a stick foul. I mean, these are Canadian broadcasters that
want to be like Americans so
saying,
much.
Yeah, well, you know why? Because they want to go down the States, right? Every Canadian broadcaster, every Canadian play-by-play guy wants to go down to the U.S.
What are they doing at NBC? I'm quite a little confused about that. NBC is doing all of...
Well, I heard that talking to a guy that Sportsnet's only going to... The first round's only doing the Canadian games. They're only showing Canadian games, Sportsnet.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and so if you don't have the NHL package in Canada, I don't unless they show the games on NBC on the prime time, which I don't think they will. You won't be able to see the American games if you care about it. You have to get the NHL package. So,
well, we should talk, and we should talk about, and then we'll get into. I think it's great that we put some of my jackets up, and we got jackets. You were saying, Cindy, that
give us an update on the coach's
give
closet.
us an update.
Oh, the coach's closet. Yes. Well,
Coach's closet.
As we said, we called it coach's closet because, as we said, a lot of people out there, I think a lot of people were cleaning out their closet. I know I was. So you were doing yours. And
no, I wasn't cleaning. I have to tell you, Cindy, I still love my jackets. They're all over the place, and
yeah.
I still think I'm making a comeback.
Yeah, and for people who didn't hear you're auctioning off.
Yes, so we put together, as I said, we say jackets, but they're really an ensemble because we're auctioning them off. If you go to the Coop ink.ca. We have an online auction going on, and we have a minimum bid. And with the jackets, not only you get a shirt and a tie and one of your cufflinks, and of course the puff.
My cufflinks too.
Yes, there are your cufflinks and a puff, and of course your infamous corsage and all. So it has pictures of the jacket, a lot of them where you wore them. Like, for instance, there's one jacket out there that was custom made for you by the Saskatchewan Rough Riders because you were doing in 2019 the Heritage game at their stadium. So they made you a really nice jacket. So that's up for auctions, and that's got a couple really good bids on it.
Coop made that too.
And the Coop made that and the whole deal. There's one jacket there that's called the Lightning jacket. And did you wear that at a Lightning game or what?
Must have. I didn't wear it much because it was against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I cheer for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I did wear it because I forget, I must have been worn in the playoffs or something.
Well, and then there's another
It's a
jacket
beauty.
there because they give a little bit, John at the Coop, who owns the Coop, he did a little bit of history on some of the jackets. And one of them was he made in 1993. And I said, now that's
And you know what? They're right in style too because they got the big wings and.
I know. Well, 93. I says that's older than the person, my son, that's doing doing the producer of the show. So there's a lot of really cool.
That's actually
jackets.
pretty good, Dad, that you could wear a jacket that long. You know, what
they're
I mean?
pretty tight.
No, they're
I like
still,
to
though,
wear.
I don't know if I could wear my jacket from 1993.
Is that right, eh?
Yeah.
No,
well,
I
then-
wore them. I like them nice and tight. A lot of people say, why do you have them so tight? Is because I always try to do it back in I loved it back in 1930s when the guys really looked sharp on.
You always liked that movie, Boardwalk Empire.
Oh, that was good. Yeah,
They
yeah.
always-
I
always
forget the guy's name, but
Steve Buscemi was always
yeah.
dressed up.
What is the story? It was the story you told.
He told a story. There was two guys that told a story. Steve Buscemi, he was. If you didn't see that movie, it's about the 1920s Prohibition, and he's a bootlegger, and they're all dressed up really, really sharp. And Steve Buscemi was always kind of a funny looking guy, and he's never a leading man. And he got the gig, and it's the same guys that did The Sopranos, right? They were the same producers and writers. And he just said, I don't know if I could be like, Gallifino
Flamboyant.
and be, and do a whole lead. And he said he couldn't. He was about to say, I can't do this. And they dressed him up, and he looked in the mirror with him all dressed up, and he said, "Yep, I look good in this. I can.
That's true.
I could be the mob." And it's the same with there was the black character, Mr. White. He got dressed by himself. The actor, I forget the actor's name, But he said, he goes, I had to get into character, and the only way for me to get into character was for me to dress myself in front of the mirror nice and slow. And they had the collars, the stick pins, and the cufflinks, and the vests, and the watches, and stuff like that. But you always said that's how you used to get ready for Coach's Corner, right?
Well, I if I had a suit that didn't fit right, I remember I had a brown suit that didn't fit right, and all these people on TV and everything, But I remember when I first went to Bruins, Bobby used to go to a place called Marty's. And
in Yorkville.
Yeah, Yorkville. We used to go down there. And he used to, he had a lot of money. I didn't have a lot of money, but I paid $1,200 for a suit. And it was $1,200. $1,200.
Did Mom know you paid $1,200?
Yeah, she did. She'd always liked me.
That would be almost 2.5 years salary for you in the American League.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Well, 2.5. Yeah, that was half my salary. I used to play half a year.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I went there. I think I bought 3 suits off them. They had vests on. They had I forget what they call the vests. There were different kind of vests over the side. Anyhow, they were great. And I remember Frank Orr, and you used to really feel good in him, just like that guy felt good in him. And behind the bench, and I had a watch chain and the whole deal. And Frank, and he really put on the act. Well, it wasn't an act. He used to feel good. And Frank Orr said, Cherry's the only guy who can strut sitting down.
Well, you used to stand. I remember your stance behind the bench, and you used to put your leg up, and you would push your jacket back because your hand was on the hip, so you would see the vest and your watch, and you go, "My, it was a statement like you were making behind the bench on TV."
You used to dress sharp, and you know what? It's a funny thing. Now that we're on to it, that the coach that coached the Boston Bruins, I'm not going to mention his name, that he only wore a leather jacket, or he didn't get dressed. He didn't think it was very, and he used to whistle for them all the time. I just thought it was pretty good because I coached against them in the American Hockey League, and then he go when he wanted them to change. I thought it was good, and they hated it.
Oh yeah,
yeah, because they thought, what are we, a bunch of dogs? But anyhow, so at the very first game, I remember the suit I had on. I had a dark blue suit on. In fact, it was the only suit I had really. And I had a vest on, and I had a watch chain. And I remember one of the players says, "Boys, a big change from last year." Anyhow,
so the jackets.
I really appreciate the people that are putting the bid in, because right now a lot of people are unemployed, and boy,
things are tough,
and I want to emphasize, Cindy, that you do this. Every penny is going to help the dogs. We're not taking 1 cent out of it. And nobody's taking a cent out of it, and it's going all to help the dogs and your pets. So good for you.
Well, thank you very much. And the foundation, we're all volunteers. We put in a lot of time. And the one more jacket, can I mention one more jacket that's up for auction?
Sure.
Is your third, you have really the Budweiser people. Maybe there's some Budweiser people out there that want this jacket.
Did I put that up?
Yeah. You put the third installment. You had 3 Budweiser jackets. This was the third installment. It's gold silk of the Budweiser jacket you gave it in. And then there's a lot of bids on, well, not a lot, well, a few enough to make it worth people's while, so check it out. So
too bad Budweiser doesn't like me anymore.
Yeah.
But
that makes it, Dad, all the more valuable, right? So, you say, all the money goes to it. Well, thanks to you, because you personally paid to get this website up and get it going. And so we're really making a lot of money.
Cindy, let's be honest. You did it. I just get.
Yeah, but Dad, money makes the world go around. You footed the bill.
True.
You know what I mean?
I was famous at one time.
So that gives you up to date. Remember, check it out, Coach's Closet at thecoopinc.ca, and
goes to help all the dogs and cats and donkeys.
The foundation gives to all type of rescues, from donkeys to reptiles to parrots.
They're good. I see donkeys once in a while.
And dogs and cats and, farm animals. Talk about the farm animals that are abused that they take in. But this, the auction goes till September 26th. So I know it's a bit long, but we just wanted to get the word out there and go from there. And
it's going for a good cause.
Yep.
All right. Now, we should talk about Columbus and Toronto, because they open up. And I know Columbus pretty good. And Torella, your coach. Now you love that guy, don't you?
You know what? There's so many reasons to like him. First of all, I love the way he talks to the press. He has this, utter disdain that he tries
he got
to
himself
control.
in a lot of trouble. How did he get out of trouble and he's still going?
Yeah, he's got it down to a science. His looks say 1,000 words, and his disdain when
Remember
they ask
the time
him
in Vancouver,
stupid questions that they ask him.
Who was he trying to get out there? Remember?
Remember it was a big line brawl right off the face-off. Everybody fought.
Oh yeah,
I don't know, I forget who the coach of Vancouver was. He was trying to get at.
Oh yeah, well he was trying to get at him, and that was a good and he was being held back. I mean, he might be a little Benny Rooster.
Yeah.
Well, and of course, as I said before, he has
troops.
his own foundation, like you do in rescuing animals in the States.
And isn't his son a Marine?
Son was over. He was Special Forces,
Yeah.
and he had a pit bull, and he took care of the pit bulls. And him and his wife have a big, beautiful farm. And so anyhow, he's one of the reasons that you're cheering for. You're cheering against Toronto.
Yeah, well, I don't know anyone in Toronto. I call any other team. I just I hope the Jackets win because I like the coach.
He lost a lot of players and injuries. He had the most injuries of anybody in the league, and he still kept them competitive or whatever you call it. And so they can't score. They're brutal scoring, but they do play defense, and they got a pretty good goalie, and he's got them playing and he inspired hockey, and he's been in the playoffs before. Now Toronto, but I still believe Toronto can outgun them. They're a run and gun club, and
like you were saying, we were talking a little bit about this last week. You said if the refs call a lot of penalties. Yeah, it's going to be awful tough for Columbus if they call a lot of penalties.
They call a lot of penalties like what they used to do, and when they had it, they used to. I mean, they were a little different. They called if you were an obvious penalty, you deserved the penalty, but they didn't call it chintzy stuff. But if they call it chintzy stuff, Toronto will love that stuff.
Yeah. I think their power play is just a little bit too strong.
Well, but we'll have to see. We don't know. And 3 out of 5, boy.
Well, you and I were talking about that. Like, just to think about it, if you lose the first game, you got to win out of 3 the next 4. I mean, there's no room for error after. If you lose that first game, you got a gun to your head.
And Anderson for Toronto cannot start slow because he'll be out awful fast. Of course, if you are out of fast, you get a shot. At the first round.
There's a consolation prize.
And you know all about getting out fast. I remember the first year with the thing. A personal note, I was up here in Kingston. I was up here in Canada going to school, and I had to take a couple courses over, and you started the playoffs, and I'm going, oh, well, I thought it was the best out of 7. By the time I got back to Boston, you were out of the playoffs. I missed the whole playoffs because I had to take these stupid courses over again. So because you lost, remember Chicago, wasn't it?
Chicago. Mm-hmm. Was it 2 out of 3? Was it?
It was
3 out of 5.
2 out of 3.
It was the best out of 5.
How could a first place?
2 out of 3.
2 out of 3? Oh, no wonder I missed it. I thought, jeez.
And I remember I said, Rose, I cannot watch this playoffs. She said, well, I'm watching. I said, Rose, please. Don't watch the.
Well, I'll delve into this a little bit more. That we were living in. We were renting a place in Saugus, Massachusetts, and it was a really small place. We've said that before, and it had a little screen porch in the back.
In the back, yeah.
And we couldn't go back to Rochester because I hadn't finished school yet, right? So the school year wasn't over. So you didn't get out of your bathrobe. You were like Tony Soprano. You didn't get out of your bathrobe for about a month. And you just went in that back room, and remember you built the ship of the Victory, Nelson's Victory.
The ship that they have in Boston, the
Constitution,
yeah.
Ironside, and so it was a big thing because in the American League or in Rochester we never got any games, but in Boston they were showing the games, and you were.
I said, look, if you saw one more game, I'm going home.
What going home meant Rochester or Kingston?
Kingston. So I got in my little car and.
You left.
I left.
Mom said, "Oh, go home to your mom. Go home.
Go home to mommy. Go home to mommy because she doesn't want to watch TV."
Well, you don't understand. You don't understand as a coach. None of the coaches that are beat out never watch the playoffs. never watch the playoffs, maybe the finals or something like that, but they're so heartbroken, or they should be heartbroken if they're a good coach. But I just couldn't stand it. Anyhow, I got out of that, and I still think that Toronto's going to win. They got more. They run and gun, and but boy, oh boy, they lose that first game. She's going to be tough.
That's for sure. Do you want to go over some of the awards?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we should say what is Seattle? What is the name?
Seattle Krakens.
Kraken.
No, you're a maritime guy. What is a Kraken?
No, I read about it. I didn't know what a Kraken was. I remember the guy saying, I was watching the Seattle station. They said, I like that. Get Kraken. What did you say, though? Somebody said.
Well, they said a lot of negative stuff. They're going to call the fans crackheads.
Yeah.
And
no, it's a big monster. It's supposed to be a big sea monster.
It's a big sea monster. And there's that B movie out, I think it's called Wrath of the Titans, or Clash of the Titans. And Zeus, who was played by Liam Neeson, gets mad on the humans and says, release the Kraken. That's the big thing. And then the Kraken's kind of like a big monster that goes out. But in folklore, it's like a giant squid.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that supposedly, and if you look at their logos, an S, right? And the inside of the S is a tentacle. Like you could see the suction cups.
Oh,
and,
yeah?
And the curve is kind of like the hand or the
I don't like
suction
that.
cup of the...
Well, at Vancouver Canucks, that's going to be, they have on their sweater a big whale, a killer whale.
Yeah, there you go.
There you are, a killer whale and a Kraken.
Versus a Kraken.
Well, that'll be the only thing they'll be fighting with.
So let me ask you, Dad, do you think there is any chance that they're going to be as successful as the Golden Knights?
Never in the history, I don't care if they go 100 years, will there ever be another team like the Golden Knights? Because what happened is, can you imagine, I hate to say Montreal, I pick a Montreal, I pick Montreal. How in the world can an expansion team make the playoffs and go to the finals, and we, Montreal Canadiens, can't even make the playoffs? And what happened was, it was Fleury, Theodore Fleury. He's the guy that, when you get a number one draft boy, what was it, Murray and...
Well, what happened, like you only could protect one goalie, and so it was between Murray and Fleury.
And he had a big year that year.
He had a big year. Well, he basically won the Stanley Cup, right? So
and he was young guy.
He was the young guy, so they had to let Fleury go.
And believe me, one of the reasons, the 90% of the reason was Fleury. He stood in his head, and they had a good coach in Gallant. And
talk about the coaching fickleness. Takes an expansion team to the finals. It was maybe a couple of saves away from winning the Stanley Cup. And a year later they get rid of him?
Gordy Gallant, eh? Yeah.
Gerard.
I don't know why I call him Gordy all the time. Anyhow, in Florida, he was doing great in Florida. Remember that?
Yeah.
And they fired him halfway. He was an American guy. He had no idea what was going on. They fired him. And I'll never forget, they had it on television. The players were on the bus, and they put their equipment away. This is a true story. And they're looking out, and here comes their coach carrying his bag and a few sticks, getting in a cab. They'd just been fired. I never forgot that. And then he goes to and does a great job in Las Vegas, and they fire him there too.
Yeah, and he was in the playoffs, I think, or a point out of the playoffs at the time.
And he's good, I guess. Oh well.
But I thought you said somewhere that that Vegas team had a lot of older players that had something to prove.
And he never ever said nobody wanted you, and that's why you're all here. He was just smart enough. They knew it. You didn't have to say that.
But that was true.
No, it was true. Yeah, they were left off the. But the big reason was Fleury. Fleury was the guy, and he's there again this year, and they'll be good again this year.
Yeah. Well, I think the last time I looked, I think they're one of the highest odds to win the cup.
No, they won't win the cup.
But that's Vegas. They're one of the ones. Last I looked,
they won't. Win
so the Seattle Kraken. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that's going to happen after the season, the playoffs, Stanley Cup's over, because you're going to find out who's going to win the first round pick overall.
That'll be good.
And then you're going to see
that is a strange one.
Yeah,
that's the strangest one of all. Tell us about that one. And the NHL said, "Holy smokes! What were the odds?"
I think the odds of them getting it they had the worst odds. It was like 35-1 or something that they were going to get the first round pick with the NHL, the guy in the team in the playoffs, and sure enough, they were the guys that won. They were the long shot that won.
And as everybody knows, if you get beat out in the first, you get beat out, you still have a chance to get in that first round draft choice.
Right. It's 8.5% chance of getting it or something like that.
Wouldn't that be something if Edmonton got it or
Pittsburgh
got it?
Yeah. And so it's a lot of interesting stuff coming up. Then they got the draft.
But you said Detroit hasn't said much, and they should say much because they had the worst team. That there's
we were talking a couple of weeks ago. I think they liked this kid from Saginaw, Cole Perfetti, that we watched play Vaughan a couple of years ago, and I think he he was the Scholastic Player of the Year. So he's good at. You could just tell the kid's smart. He's good at school, and he got a lot. He got like over 110 points this year. And he's kind of quietly the guy that's been flew under the radar. And I think he would have I think he was the last cut in the World Juniors for Team Canada. And, Dale Hunter was kind of those guys that he got some role players. But if it was another coach, he would have made the World Juniors. And I think Detroit's quite happy they're going to take him in the fourth spot.
So if you get beat out, you still got a shot at the first round draft choice. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah, but... So do you want to talk about baseball, or you want to talk about the...
Well, let's talk about baseball. Starting out, and I'm a baseball guy.
Yeah.
I love baseball. I never miss them, but it does seem strange. To me, it seems strange. I always like to look in the crowd in the background. And Arizona last night, they had cutouts sitting in the back of the. I don't like that. That looks stupid.
Well, I think they said that. I can't believe this. It must it's on the internet, so you take it with a grain of salt. That people are bidding to have their cutout picture in the back.
They look all different
in the back. And I guess the money goes to charity. So you could
that's good.
Yeah,
idea.
You can spend like $300, and then your picture can be in the back behind the plate.
Yeah, but it looks stupid.
Yeah, you know what? I got to be honest. I don't mind. Like I never.
I think boxing is the best.
Boxing, you don't like. I watch UFC. You don't miss it there. I don't miss the boxing, golf. But
now, what are they going to do in hockey? They're going to have the sound, and they're going to have if you score, the music.
Yeah. So the sound is going to be used, and I guess it's going to be controlled by the guys that do the sports, EA Sports. So the hockey games, the video hockey games.
Oh yeah.
So
they'll know what's going on.
So they'll know what's going on, and they'll do. And I think what they did was they have really large screens over where the seats are, so you won't see a massive thing of empty seats, and they have 12 extra cameras. So 12 more cameras than they normally have. So they said you're really going to see a lot of different angles, and I think that they're moving the cameras down closer.
Well, I love that, down closer. How about in New York, Rangers? They look like little ants.
Yeah, they look like ants. Yeah. Well, Toronto and Edmonton aren't bad camera-wise.
No, they're good.
But hopefully they'll move them down. And then I was talking to a guy the other day who was doing some work, and I said, are you going to be in the little bubble, the isolation stuff? And he said,
no. What is the bubble, by the way?
So basically it's like, they're in this it's a area that nobody can go in.
Oh yeah.
So they can't mix with other people. But what he was saying was to get into that, you had to have 3 COVID tests in with 48-hour intervals. So you had to have a test. You got come back negative. You had to wait 2 days, get another test, come back negative, wait 2 days, and then get another test before you were let in to.
And they're staying at.
They're staying in Toronto at the Royal York, and then at the X at Hotel X, and then I think the Sutton Place and the rink at the Hotel the Rink in Edmonton.
And how long are they going to be without their families?
If you go to the finals, it's 10 weeks.
That is a long time.
I'll ask you, Dad. Okay, so they're going to be together in the hotel. So let's say they go down to the lobby, and there's a pool table, and there's a ping pong table, and 2 Philadelphia Flyers guys are playing ping pong, or pool.
Pool.
The Pittsburgh. Let's say they're playing pool. Are like Sidney Crosby and Malkin going to walk up and say we got the next game, or you think?
No, they'll. I personally think. I mean, it's not like it used to be, like Rocket Richard. he'd go all day without eating. He'd be in the last car in the train. He used to take the car from Montreal, train from Montreal to Detroit. So one time he was in the last car, and he had to go through the Detroit car to get to the breakfast place, and he wouldn't go. He had nothing to eat. And it's not like nothing like that now. There's no hate in that. Of course, you play back-to-back games. You play back-to-back games.
Yeah.
So
Well, they will be, right? Like, you know.
yeah, you play back-to-back, boy. You know. So I don't think that if two guys are playing pool, I don't think they go up and play pool with them. Or if they were playing ping pong, I don't think they'd do that. They see each other in the halls and that they'd say hello and stuff like that, like they never do before. No, I still think that it's there that
There's some guys have a little bit of hate still.
And especially the guys in the third and the fourth line that bang and like Clifford. He's one of my favorites. I remember one time I was on, and I know this is a story. I said I really like that Kyle Clifford. And the guy was with Ron. Who?
Surprisingly with Ron, because he knows everybody.
Yeah, and he knows everybody. I think he just said that just to get me going. But anyhow, I always like him. And, he's the guy. They won't fool around with him, boy. He'll bang and smash, too. Yeah. I just hope they don't call penalties, because if they do, he'll get a lot of penalties.
Yeah. So should we – well, you want to – I think the one – to me, the big story – and I don't think anybody, I haven't really read about it in the paper. We got to talk about the NHL awards. And Dad, there's one name glaringly missing in the NHL awards.
I cannot believe this. The best hockey player, if you're like, I think you said it the best hockey player in the world, as far as I'm concerned, is McDavid.
Oh,
there's no, but like, I'm not knocking Draisaitl. I'm not knocking a lot of people, but McDavid is the best. If you're, I think it was saying, if you were an expansion team and you said you could have one player, you'd take McDavid. He wasn't up for one award.
What award? I said, we'll call it the Bobby Orr syndrome. When the first year that you were coaching, Bobby, he was lights out, the best player every game, day in and day out. And after about 5 games at home that he won the first star, they didn't give him the first star anymore, because it was like, well, Bobby's the first star. But
who's the second?
Who's the second star? So is it that? You think it's that mentality?
I think what happens is he's so good. He's in another world. Personally, I think he's the best player in the world. And they didn't even give it to him coming back. Maybe he come back from the knee injury and the whole deal. Yeah. I think he's in another world. They always pick the guy that's the second best, because if you wanted to go down the list of all he could almost be in every classify. Yeah. Even the guy that come back from an injury.
Yeah.
He could have had them all. And to be not up for one trophy, it's ridiculous. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, he's the best player in the world.
Yeah. I hate to be knocking Canada, but I know the NHL just cringed when McDavid went to Edmonton. If Connor McDavid was in New York, he would be up for he'd be up for the award.
Funny thing is, he turned Edmonton into a pretty good club. Draisaitl.
Yeah, I'm if I'm picking a dark horse to win the Stanley Cup, I'm picking Edmonton, because I think that Mike Smith can get on a roll, and if the refs are calling penalties, and that's all they need, and I can't. For a guy like Connor McDavid, he's got to be a little bit slighted that he's not up for.
Well, he won't say anything.
He won't say anything. He'll say, they say the same thing. Oh, every guy deserves it and all that. But he might say, oh yeah, well, I'm going to go out and win the Conn Smythe now.
Well, he did. As far as I'm concerned, he did last year. Now we're going to end with Bobby. You told me about Bobby Orr.
We'll go some Bobby Orr, but we'll go through some of the guys too. But I was looking at Connor McDavid, and I forgot how old he was. So my wife Ling and I were looking at he's 23, Mitch Marner's 23, Connor McDavid, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews is 23, and Eichel's 23.
Yeah,
so they're 23 years old. Bobby Orr played till he was 28.
Imagine he was
28. So those guys have 5 years more left of what Bobby did.
And
so this is what Bobby did though in those years. He won 2 Stanley Cup, 2 Art Ross, 8 Norris trophies, Rookie of the Year, 3 Hart, 2 Conn Smythes.
Do that again. Do it slowly.
So he had 2 Stanley Cup, 2 Art Ross. I think that's, I don't know if that's right, 2 Art Ross. 1 Art Ross.
No, and two.
2 Art Ross, which is leading scorer. 8 Norris trophies. Rookie of the Year. 3 Hart trophies and 2 Conn Smythe trophies.
I love Harry Howell. I remember when I was in Rochester, I was in the minor leagues, and I remember him saying, well, I'm glad I won it this year, he says, because there's a kid coming up, nobody's going to win it for the next 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, so
And
those guys have 5 years to accomplish that.
And it's a funny thing is that if you look at Coffey's record, he was always good, but he never really turned it on till he was after. Most defensemen, Potvin and them all that, after they're 28, they really turn it on. And here he was retiring. He was 20. He played too reckless.
Like if his knees were good, that 28, he would have been right in his prime. That's just when he was starting, as you said.
Yeah, I said to him one time, I said, we're winning. Do you have to block shots? Do you have to be so reckless? You go in and see Coffey. They both, to me, they were the best skaters I ever saw. Him and Burry was in there too. But I said to him, I said, do you have to go in the traffic all the time when you got, and he says, that's the way I play. Now, Coffey was just as good skater. He used to go to the outside, and that's why he lasted till he was in his 30s. But Bobby, he'd go in, and he says, that's the way I play. But if you take a look at the way he did play, boy, he'd make that little thing, and he missed guys. And he used to do something. Jeremy Roenick used to do it, and Pavel Burry used to do it. They used to call it leaving a leg. And when you leave a leg, they're going to get nailed.
Tell us the story. I don't think we told a story about with Bobby and the way he could move like that. It had a lot to do with his skates and the way they sharpened it. And
well, this is getting along.
Did we talk about that before? About how he had his skates really sharp.
He had a deep hollow. A lot of you guys that are sharpening skates, he had the deepest hollow I've ever seen in my life. That's how he could turn on a dime, but it was awful. There was no give at all. And that's why I think one of his knees went on him. And I remember Cash coming to me saying, hey, Grapes, can we have another stone on the thing? If you have another stone. I said, you mean you only got one stone? Yeah, he said, for Bobby Orr. And Bobby was so thick. And the guys, and to me, Eddie Shore, he used to slide. He used to slide everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, well, for people that don't know what a hollow is the 2 edges of the blade. And the hollow is how deep the groove is between those 2 edges of the blade.
And that's what makes him being able to go and be on the edge.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, anyhow,
should we go over a couple of the things that again, the best they should have. Okay, who's the best player award? It would be Connor McDavid, but right now the Hart Trophy for MVP is Draisaitl, McKinnon, and Panarin for the Rangers.
No McDavid. No, I don't know. I don't know. Take your McKinnon. Yeah, I like McKinnon because I just like him. That's all. And
well, I mean, he's got 93 points and he's a plus 13. And Draisaitl, I mean, he's got 110, but he's a minus player.
Yeah.
And Panarin did pretty well. I
like Panarin too.
He's 95 points and he's plus 30.
I still like McKinnon.
So I'll ask you a quick question, Dad. Who was the biggest plus player in the NHL this year?
Yeah, you told me, and I didn't. Tell me about him. From Nova Scotia, I know.
From Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, for the Colorado Avalanche, Ryan Graves. He's a defenseman.
And and
what's his plus? What is it?
Plus 46.
That's unbelievable.
Like when we were talking, like, okay, you go to the Carlson, Hedman, and
I didn't know that.
And Yossi are up, and Yossi, whatever his name is, are up for best defenseman. And you go, okay, but, this guy's leading the league plus 40. They should have it. And these guys, the Norris Trophies now is for the leading scoring defenseman, right? Carlson will win strictly because of his points. But he's only plus 12. This guy, Graves I think he had like 13 or 14 points, but he's plus 46. So why don't they have a trophy for the best defensive defenseman?
You get off on another subject. Mr. Selke, I remember when he said, we have all trophies. We don't have a trophy for somebody like Gainey, Bob Gainey. And I never get many goals. And so they made the Selke. And the Selke was for guys that never got many points, but was a good defensive player. The same as you're talking about. No, nobody knows that he's a plus 42. Nobody ever said that.
No.
I didn't know that. I have to admit I didn't know that. But Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, and should be very proud of him, and I think they should have a trophy for that because it's like when Bobby Orr, when they made the Norris, and I don't know why they don't change that Norris, but anyhow, when they did that, he was the best player, best defenseman, and he got the most points.
Yeah, and but right now the Norris Trophy is just strictly they just look top 3 point getters on defense, and then they give it to him.
That's all I know.
Yeah. So you go talk about the Selke Award. It's Bergeron, Couturier, and Ryan O'Reilly.
Well, no, that's tough, Ellie. You know, I like O'Reilly.
Yeah.
Buffalo, why they ever got rid of him is beyond me.
Selke is for what?
Best defensive forward.
I still go with Bergeron. If I was winning 3-2 in a face-off in the end, I'd take Bergeron.
Yeah. So
and again, you got to get some points to get that. That was supposed to be for, as I said, for Gainey.
Yeah, all those guys got over 55 points.
Yeah.
So the Rookie of the Year is Hughes, Kabalik, and Marker for the Avalanche.
Well, I got to go for Marker. He's from, and I like Hughes though, and I like those guys. They're all good. I mean, it sounds like you're putting the other guys down. I'm not, but I'll go for Marker. Marker is from Brandon, Manitoba.
Yeah. So then the Vezina Trophy, you got Hellebuyck, Rask, and Vasilevsky.
Oh, I go for the Hellebuyck on that one. He had more shots against him and more hard shots. And no, I go Hellebuyck on that one for sure.
The funny thing was, Vasilevsky, they've got him in there because he has the most wins, right?
Yeah.
Like he's got 35 wins. But his save percentage isn't in the top 20 in the league, and his goals against average isn't in the top 10. But he's got the most. But he's got a good team. But I think Hellebuyck
will win that one
for sure. So Dad, Jack Adams Award, Bruce Cassidy for Boston, John Tortorella for the Jackets, and Alain Vignon for the Flyers.
Well, Vignon did a good job of the Flyers. There's no doubt about that. He's a good coach, and of course he had a good goalie, and showed me Hart showed me a good goalie, and I'll show you a good coach.
That's what you said to me. You said, Tim, what do all 3 of those guys have in common? I said, I don't know. They all have good goalies.
Yeah, and boy, you look good. I know. I went from Jerry Cheevers and Gilly Gilbert to the human sieve. I already asked him. Anyhow, Tortorella, he had a lot of injuries. He had a lot of guys. He lost his goaltender, and he still had them in contention. He had more injuries than anybody in the league. And we have to mention Berube that was in the in the finals. I mean,
and St. Louis was they were one of the top teams.
And Maurice,
Paul Maurice for Winnipeg.
Yeah, all the injuries he had, and he still kept them going. He lost 2 good he lost Myers and Bufflin, and he still had them in there. But I'll pick Cassidy because he's an Irish guy, and he's from Boston.
And the Bruins had a lot of injuries this year, too.
Sure they did.
They had a lot of injuries this year.
And he had Chair out, and no McDavid, and coming up the next one, Ted Lindsay. That's, to me, shows that the players think he's the best player, and he's in another world. And because, I mean, not even Ted Lindsay Award, that's where the players pick it. So tell us who's they're going to.
Again, it's the same guys that are in the Hart: Draisaitl, McKinnon, and Panarin.
And what's this? What's their qualifications for this?
Well,
players.
I think the Hart is voted by the sports writers and whoever votes for the choice, and then this one is by the players.
For what? What are they voting?
MVP, most valuable.
Oh, to the team, yeah. Okay.
And McDavid's not in there again, so that's why I think he's in another world. And I don't know who's going to win that one. The Ted Lindsay Award, that's a biggie. The players are very proud. That used to be the Pearson Award. Figure that one out. Anyhow, the Pearson and Ted Lindsay couldn't be a better guy, and the players are very. But McDavid's not in it again, which is sort of a joke.
We're second in the league, It's strange. Again, I think it's just that, as you said, it's just
world.
He's so good. Let's give it to somebody else. You know what I mean? You know what? Let's pass it around a little bit.
Because he's the best player. There's no doubt of it.
So the Bill Masterson Trophy is Stephen Johns, Oscar Lindblom, and Bobby Ryan.
What's this judging?
Well, it's kind of like a comeback. Who's had a tough time? And
who might have better comeback than McDavid on his knee?
Yeah, it was a lot more serious than people thought.
Yeah.
If you watch that documentary.
So this is from an injury or something?
Yeah, he went the goalpost.
Yeah.
Got tripped by Giardello, and he went in the goalpost, and they tore his ACL, and he had to work all summer. And He not even nominated.
Yeah.
I mean, never mind that. And he had I think he had a better injury,
Well-
bigger injury than the rest of the guys.
Yeah. Well, Bobby Ryan, he left because he had some issues with the alcohol thing, and then Lindbrom, he has cancer and he came back and he got sick again though. So that's a tough one. They should give them all three, and then the Lady Byng, Dad, if you care, McKinnon, Matthews, and O'Reilly.
Yeah, I remember a funny story. I either had them tough or I had them
The other way.
Sweethearts.
sweethearts. Ricky Middleton I think won it.
After you left though, Ricky Middleton won it, and then John Rattel.
Oh, I can tell a story about John Rattel. That I said after Busick left, and
Busick won it too.
And Busick won too, 500 goals. Everybody doesn't know that John Busick got 500 goals. Anyhow, I said, I don't want any Lady Byngs. I don't want any Lady Byngs on this team. And I'm going on about Lady Byngs because I never dreamed. And by gall, they give Jean Rattel. And now one day he came in the office and he says, Donnie, can I talk to you? And I said, sure, Jean. What is it? He says, I am very sorry. And I'm thinking, what is he like? This guy is a saint. John Rattel. And he says, I won the Lady Byng. I am sorry.
I know we told this story once before, but I think it's one of the best stories about the face-off just outside the blue line. And I think that this is the hardest the players ever laughed on the bench.
Well, so here's Jean Rattel, one of the greatest face-off guys of all time. And he was like I used to call him like Jean Beliveau. He had that. He was a French Canadian, very, very, very nice, very. So I remember he was cut. There was about 35 seconds left. We were winning by 1 goal in the playoffs, and it was a face-off just inside our blue line. And I thought, well, I'll call him over. I called him over, and here he is standing there with the blood trickling down his eye and the sweat pouring down. And I said, now look, Sean, don't pull it back on our end. You're a left-hand draw. He's a left-hand draw. He's going to go along with you. I said, shoot it down in their end. And he looked at me very kindly and said, yes, Denis, I had that figured out. Well, and the cameras on the players, they are just killing themselves. And I'm standing there with this stupid look on my face. Who am I, punker from Rochester, telling the greatest face-off guy of all time how to, but I just wanted to make sure. And the players are just killing themselves, and they can't understand why. I mean,
You said he apologized again.
No, he came in, and I said, please. I felt so embarrassed even talking to you. I'm telling him how to take a face-off. I just did not want it in our end, but anyhow. John Rattel, Lady Byng, what a great guy.
Well, that's about it, Dad. I think we did the stuff, and next time we'll be able to be talking a little bit about what's going on. I think we can talk a little bit. It's maybe next week we'll start talking about baseball a little bit. We started getting into it, then we got off it again, but we'll talk a little bit.
Oh, I love baseball. Yeah, we'll get into baseball, and we wish the Blue Jays luck in their new Buffalo Stadium, and that's a little gem down there, and it's going to be great. I hope all the people jam it. Oh,
there's going to be nobody there. Yeah, that's a really nice. That's a nice.
That is a gem.
Yeah, but just one last thing. Does it bother you with no fans or?
It doesn't bother me in boxing. I didn't notice. Soccer, I don't think it makes much difference, but I think it'll make a difference in hockey. I really do. But I don't notice any difference in baseball. I watch the baseball, and in fact, I like it better. I don't have, and the baseball guys are just as intense as ever.
Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll be back next week, and hockey's right around the corner.
Lord willing.